Greetings fans, hyperfans and people just lost looking for videos of cats on YouTube. I have given you a week-long review of each of these guys individually, but it's about time that I bring this all into PREDAKING. This is going to be a slightly longer review, so get yourself comfortable, make some popcorn, because this is going to be some Hateful Eight length stuff. Whilst the limbs won't do the whole Scramble City things of being either arms or legs, the transformation is pretty much identical for all four limbs. So starting with beast mode, we separate the legs, and I'll just show you inside that there are ports here and a tiny little tab there, which match up with the identical ones on that side. You just pop those into place. They fit in pretty firmly, and then clip the legs back together. They clip together really quite firmly. Transform the animal legs the same way you would do putting it into robot mode. Bring the head all the way down and lock the chin in, and then we can have a look at a new piece of transformation for these guys. The front legs unclip from the side and turn at the shoulders, freeing up this black section here, which is actually the combiner port. On these KOs, this is incredibly stiff, and because it's oversized, it's slightly harder to move than the original MMC version. So I just tend to take a marker pen of the same diameter as the combiner port and use that to just ratchet up to the top. Now these sections are supposed to rotate round and plug together, but the way that they've been copied means that where it's supposed to be offset holes and tabs, they're mirrored, so there's no way to actually get those to lock together. We are instead reliant on getting these posts into these holes on the feet, and spinning the legs round so that those hollows on the hooves sit over those spikes. And there we have one completed leg. The other one transforming in exactly the same way. We've got this guy with the top half completely in robot mode, the bottom half, the legs folded up as in beast mode, and the legs remaining folded up. We just separate that out, make sure that the tail is folded in and plugged in. The screw hole in this little cutout on either side is going to be the port for the wrist. Just making sure that when you plug it in, you're leaving the black panels of the folded up feet facing the outside. I mean, everything spins, so it's not a massive deal. Just put it back in, squeeze the legs together, and you've got that pretty much done. Combiner port already showing at the back. So now all we need to do is fold up the fists. Fold the arms up so those bars go into those ports. Rotate it round so that the spikes are at the top. Do what we can to minimize the head. And then just a little bit more rotation to make sure that that waist joint gives you at least a little bit of an elbow bend. The one problem with this particular guy is I've mentioned before that this piece has been put in backwards, which means that no matter what I do, I'm never going to get this side to match up properly. Luckily, that's going to be towards the back of Predaking, so if we're lucky, that won't be too noticeable. Dive Bomb transforms in almost exactly the same way. The arms double bend up and lock in. Here they actually have a point to lock in, if I can show you, to a tiny little peg there, which just makes it so much more secure. The legs have the same divots for the fist and locked together in exactly the same way as Nightiger's legs. The head is just gonna fold down as is. And the one thing that we have to do here in addition is to pull off the wings. So here we have the arm. The tail can bend round in front of the forearm as a buckler. Combiner port there, fist held in perfectly, and this we will put onto the back of Razorclaw. I know it's a little bit of parts forming.
By the gods, parts forming? Really, parts forming.
Okay, don't get in a tiz about it. There is an additional form, and I'll show you that one first. Going back to bird mode, you just clip the legs together, fold the talon feet all the way back, open up this little door here, or actually flip the face up and lock it first, then flip that little door up, fold out that combiner port, extend these up, and this whole thing's going to go onto Predaking. The preparation of Leo ducks is probably one of the most fun ones. Like the centerpiece of most combiners, here's where you're actually going to start to see some idea of what the finished result is going to be. So starting by just lowering the lion head, and for now we're just going to detach that shield. The most complex piece is going to be the head. The head is actually a really clever bit of engineering for the KO. Once you open up this collar section, the original MMC figure had a few interesting transformation pieces actually on Predaking's head that let it fold up into the chest, including having the horns flatten out. This figure has no such luxury. It instead has a cavity in the waist where the horns disappear into, meaning you can get a much bigger head than the chest would ever hold hidden away. If I actually shine the flash down there, you can see that additional gap all the way to the base. But we just work the head back into the collar and fold up the chest, making sure to pop that piece back up. So the lion head has something, sorry, all the way down, not all the way up. So the lion head has something to clip into. As with the limbs, the front animal paws just collapse in on themselves. Double elbow, meaning you can peg that in, and we just turn the lion paws down so everything lines up. Actually, the lion claws do sit better void side facing out. The legs are quite easy to transform. Just pop the lion legs the way they were for robot mode and fold down the combiner port. If we take the arm shield and just open it up and stretch it out as much as we can, this is going to be the crotch plate for PREDAKING. Making sure this piece on the waistband faces backwards and the gold piece faces forward. Split the legs, pull them down to the halfway locking, take the shield and plug it in at the front. Bring this piece all the way down and lock it into the back, and plug the shield in using the same ports that let you attach it in lion mode. Unplug the skirt pieces, and you have him pretty much ready. Right, if you're going to put him into super mode, first of all we're going to do something with the legs, which is we're going to lift them up at the thigh, turn them 180, so the screws are at the front, turn it at that thigh cut, bend at the red, and extend the leg to its full height. Basically what this is going to do is make his centre of balance about ½ an inch further back to compensate for the huge backpack. So starting from the legs, we just have to grab hold of the port and the peg, line those up and push those in to connect. Now if I just grab headstrong and line those up, these ports work with 2 separate plates on springs either side of the peg, so pushing it in, it's incredibly hard to get it past there, but it's very firm when it is in. Dive Bomb plugs into the back with exactly the same mechanism, as does Rampage, as does Feeler Saber. I understand why some people may prefer this super form of PREDAKING. The 6th member does add a little bit more symmetry to it, the backpack does give him a little bit more weight, but all in all I'm not sure that what Feeler Saber brings to the group is worth it becoming a 6-figure transformer. When you buy this JinBao knockoff, you're almost certainly going to be sold it as a set of 6. But as far as I'm concerned, Fearless Saber's pretty much going to be just applying spare parts to his brethren. The change in leg configuration and the additional weight on the back make what's a difficult to pose toy even more difficult to manoeuvre, and I think I'd be much better showing you the articulation with the 5-man setup. The one thing that I haven't got pictured here is the sword. The G1 Predaking had a glorious golden blade, which is mimicked by combining each of the Predacon's individual weapons into something that looks as though it's come out of Final Fantasy. Fully armed up and in the 5-person configuration, this iteration of Predaking is amazing. It has just enough mods to the G1 model without being too blocky, just enough updated detail to fit it in with the rest of the modern Hasbro collection. The sword is hysterical. It's been upsized even further than the robots themselves, so actually getting Predaking to wield it isn't the easiest thing in the world. If I just take that out, the scale of this sword, it looks pretty good when I'm holding it. I'd be worried to carry this around in public if there were armed police around. But for Predaking, there are a couple of problems. Turn it over, the weight of it tends to open up that clip there, so you do have to be careful about how you carry it. Second problem, if you're not going to have him holding it, where do you store it? There's nowhere to really sort of plug it in anywhere on him. So it's a case of give him a massive chopper or have a box full of parts. So starting off with minor articulation, you've actually got a few options of how you set this guy up for play or display. Bovis has some articulations on the horns, so you can clear some space off there. The guns at the top do actually extend out, if your shelves will allow it, as indeed do the wings. The wings have all the articulation that they did in Dive Bomb's bird mode, but we've also got that joint there that we are utilising, and of course the feathers are all individually articulated. You can have them all squashed up like that. This third one actually has the most limited range, so if you're going to have them spread out, you're kind of judging by hand. That one locks in place too, so it's splitting the difference in there in distance and there as well. So onto standard articulation, the head is on a ball joint. He can look up, down, does have rotation to the side and a head tilt. All of it quite limited by the collar. The collar doesn't really lock into place particularly well, so it is a case of lifting the head out, putting it where you want, and then just pushing it back down into space. Because of the construction of the combiner ports, he does have rotation. You've probably got about 190 degrees before it starts hitting the wings. Because of the two joints, he actually has a double shoulder joint, but one half is obviously much stronger than the other, and you got to make your decisions about which one you're going to use based on how firmly you want it to hold into that position. The waist joints become a bicep swivel, so he has a 360-degree turn there. The elbows are a mixture of the waist articulation from the robot and a little bit of the leg articulation. Depending on how you set this up, you can probably get, that's probably the most you can get the elbow to bend, which is about 85 degrees. You've got a wrist swivel, the thumb on a ball joint, the fingers are one piece, and pretty much the same on the other side, which of course is going to be hampered a little by the buckler or the cannon, depending on what you're using. This chap does have waist articulation, although with the front shield getting in the way, you do have to move it a little bit just to give it some clearance. The thighs, if I lift these out, are exactly the same as they were for Leo Ducks. You can actually have the legs at 3 different heights. I've got this collapsed all the way in to give it that G1 proportions. I'm just going to move this out of the way to give you a better look. But he can have all the way out to that height. And that puts him pretty much on par with the Hasbro Titan Devastator. Those waist joints are nice and stiff. They will hold the leg. I wouldn't risk doing a Mirage kick with this guy because I just do not think that he will balance correctly. Let me see. Yeah, the main reason that I'm not going to risk that is the feet. The ball joints in the feet are incredibly loose. So whilst he will hold when you've got him in an extreme pose, I think I am going to have to tighten those up with a little bit of super glue. Speaking of the legs, he does have a knee joint. Actually, again, the double knee, which gives you about 95 degrees. He does have rotation at the thigh, and he does have a full range of motion on the foot, which, you know, is a little bit of a problem sometimes. The top half of the knee joint is a lot weaker than the bottom half, just because of the nature of how those ports fold out. Major kudos to anybody who manages to do some stop motion with this guy. There's always a balance between quality and price on any toy really, on the KOs especially. And whilst this was produced for the domestic Chinese market, a lot of sellers are picking up on the fact that this is a fantastic toy, and in the West he's worth a lot of money. Prices are slowly rising up to £250 or so. I'm not sure that he's worth that much, but if you can get him for under 175, I think that he's an excellent addition to your collection. Going back to the MMC version, there are a lot of simplifications. All the lights have gone, most of the paint apps, and to be honest, the simplification on the articulation, I don't really miss that much, especially in the upscaled form. If you are a masterpiece / third-party collector and you like that incredibly high-end product, this is not that. But if, on the other hand, you're a fan of playable with toys, collect the Hasbro stuff, and would really like PREDAKING in your collection, especially with Skylinks coming out in the next couple of months, then this may very well be your bag. Thank you for sticking with me all week. I hope it's been worth it. If you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button. If you've liked this video, give me the thumbs up. Comments always welcome in the section below. And remember, If you're keeping the mint in package, you're not a toy collector, you're a box collector. Till next time.
Oh, parts forming.